The PageDNA Imposition System can impose orders for one-sided or two-sided items. This includes items with styles and static items with one-page or two-page PDF files. Orders can be imposed manually and downloaded manually, or imposed automatically via a schedule. When using a schedule, plates can be delivered via email, FTP, or SFTP. Items with more than 2 pages cannot be imposed by our imposition system. 3 things are needed to impose orders using our imposition system. A manufacturer capable of sending orders to our imposition system. An item configured to use that manufacturer. A plate configured to impose orders for the item. Configuring a manufacturer and item are covered in a separate video. Configuring a plate will be covered in this video. After you are sure that orders for an item can be imposed manually, a schedule can be added and configured in auto-build setup to impose orders and deliver plates automatically. Configuring schedules is not covered in this video. Imposition can be accessed in the Hub, the Tools tab, and Imposition subtab. Imposition opens to the Layout Plates tab where you will find orders waiting to be imposed. There are 2 orders here. MH3WJ6 with 3 line items and MH3X48 with 1 line item. By default, measurements are in points. I've set imposition to use inches as the unit of measure. This can be done in auto-build setup in the tab named Other. Notice that the business cards are 3 3/4 by 2 1/4 inches. We will need to use a plate that can impose this size. Let's go to Plate Setup to check the plate's configuration. There are several plates that have been configured. Plates are listed by increasing sizes, with the smallest listed first. Only one has been configured to impose items that are 3 3/4 by 2 1/4 inches. It is named 12 by 18 21 up BC with bleeds. When configuring a plate, please read all the explanatory notes for all of the fields. The name can appear in the slug that appears in the margin of a plate and elsewhere when examining a plate's details. The description can be used to add details about the plate in Plate Setup. The available variables for the label are listed below the label format field and how to use them. You can use the test button to check the label. The master width and height are defined first as 12 inches wide by 18 inches tall. This plate is configured to impose items 3 across and 7 down, which will yield 21 up. The item width and height must include the bleeds. They are 3 3/4 and 2 1/4 inches. The width and height of the item sent to be imposed must be within plus or minus 1 point of the size entered for the plate. Next are bleeds, top, left, right, and bottom. These are all set to 1/8 of an inch. The head margin is 1/2 inch. The side margin is 3/8 of an inch. This will provide equal white space on the left and right edges of the 12 by 18 press sheet. The horizontal gutter is the margin between columns. The vertical gutter is the margin between rows. No gutters have been added between the bleeds. Slot orientation determines how items will be imposed. Normal is the default and most common option used. The other options, for which explanations can be found in our documentation, are head to head, foot to foot, flip first column, and flip second column. Imposition ordering determines whether rows will be filled first or columns. The slots are filled from left to right, no matter whether rows or columns is selected. Run length calc is the algorithm for how items will be imposed. The options are minimize run length, leave empty slots, which is the default. Place each item once. In other words, each item is imposed 1 up on this plate to impose multiple orders that have the same quantity. Minimize run length, fill empty slots. This can produce overruns depending upon how many up each item is imposed. This option may be desirable when printing on masters or shells. 2-sided items are imposed using 2 plates, one for the front and one for the back. Backside flip is for whether the back will be a sheet-wise work and turn or a sheet-wise work and tumble. Slot orientation and imposition ordering may need to be taken into consideration for the backside flip setting. The next 4 fields define trim marks for width, height, thickness, and trim spacer, which is the distance between the trim marks and item bleeds. The trim slug color, slug position, slug font size, and slug format string define the slug and the information in the slug. The slug position options are for the slug's location and where inside and outside are relative to the trim marks. The slug format string can only use the variables listed below the field. You can use a test button to check this look. It is possible to include a background EPS file like color bars or duplo marks or targets. If the PageDNA storefront is configured to generate a ship label, including it will produce a file that can be used as a top sheet when trimming. This was the ship label's original purpose. Do separations cannot be enabled for plates output as PDF. File type outputs for the plate are PostScript, PDF, serialized PostScript, PDF to PostScript, and EPS, which is identical to PostScript.eps extension. Page Rotate allows you to rotate the plate after it has been imposed. This does not affect the way items are imposed on the plate. H-gutter and V-gutter overrides are rarely used and are covered in our documentation. Serial copies is an option that has never been used and is not documented. When trying to save, an error in points will be presented if any of the settings will not fit on the plate. Save your settings to use the test front and test back options at the top. Here we are looking at a test of the front. You can download the tests to check the fronts and backs for the relative alignment. Imposing orders listed in layout plates is covered in a separate video.